Chosen one, did you feel abandoned this morning when you prayed? Did doubt whisper that your words hit nothing but ceiling? Did you wonder if God even cares about your desperate cry? Here's the shocking truth that will shatter everything you think you know about prayer. This morning, while you felt forgotten, heaven held its breath. Stop everything, right now, because what I'm about to tell you will change how you see your morning prayer forever. While you thought God was silent, He wasn't. While you believed you were alone, you weren't. While the enemy whispered, "He doesn't hear you," heaven was recording every word. Picture this sacred moment. Angels froze mid-flight. The throne room of eternity leaned forward. 24 elders turned their heads, and the Father himself whispered to heaven's courts. I felt that. This morning, while the world was still drowning in their phones, still lost in their sleep, still chasing their empty distractions, you moved the heart of Almighty God. While others scrolled through meaningless feeds, you surrendered to the Most High. While they were consumed with the temporary, you touched the eternal. That wasn't routine prayer. That wasn't religious recitation. That was raw, unfiltered, soul-level intimacy that pierced through every realm and landed directly in the palm of God's hand. Your tears, liquid prayers. Your whispers, thunder in heaven. Your broken words, perfect language that only the Father understands. Revelation 5-8 tells us your prayers are stored like precious incense in golden bowls before God's throne. Every syllable you spoke this morning captured, every groan too deep for words treasured. Every moment you felt unheard, heaven was writing your name in permanent ink. But what if this morning was more than just prayer? What if it was heaven's green light to unleash something that's been waiting in the spiritual realm? What if your surrender just triggered a divine chain reaction that will reshape your entire destiny? Before we go deeper into this revelation, I want to thank every single soul who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity isn't just a donation, you're helping spread light to others who feel forgotten in their calling. Whether you sow a seed or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your time, your attention, your open heart, it all matters to heaven. If your heart stirred while praying this morning, if a tear fell, if a whisper escaped your lips, if you felt that holy desperation, drop your city and time in the comments below. Let us witness where heaven paused because of you. Let's create a map of where God's presence touched earth through the prayers of His chosen ones. Because what heaven heard this morning is about to respond in ways that will leave you speechless. Have you ever wondered why you're the only one in your family who feels God's call so deeply? Why are you the one who wakes up at 3 a.m. with an unexplainable burden to pray while everyone else sleeps peacefully? Why does your heart break for things that don't even touch others around you? Here's what's happening that will blow your mind. You're not broken, you're chosen. And the very things that have made you feel different, isolated, even weird, those are the exact qualifications heaven was looking for. Listen to me carefully. You have survived traumas that buried others. You've carried burdens in silence that would have crushed weaker souls. You've walked through valleys of shadow where others would have given up and turned back. But here's the revelation that will change everything. It wasn't for nothing. Every tear you cried alone, God was collecting them. Every prayer you whispered in desperation, heaven was recording them. Every moment you felt like giving up but somehow found strength to keep going, that was divine DNA activating inside you. The silence you felt from God wasn't abandonment, it was preparation. He wasn't ignoring you, He was isolating you. Like a master craftsman working on his finest piece, God had to separate you from the noise, from the crowd, from the comfortable, to shape you into something the world has never seen before. 1 Peter 2-9 declares something earth-shattering about your identity. But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of Him who called you out of darkness into His wonderful light. Royal priesthood. Do you understand what that means? You're not just saved, you're elevated. You're not just forgiven, you're commissioned. You carry the authority of heaven in your bloodstream. When you speak, demons tremble. When you pray, angels move. When you worship, God himself leans in to listen. But here's why most people miss their calling. They mistake isolation for rejection. They think being different means being defective. They believe their struggles disqualify them, instead of realizing their struggles are their credentials. A fire doesn't lose value when it burns alone, it becomes more refined. The hottest fires burn in solitude, creating the purest gold. Every moment you felt like you were burning up inside. Every season you felt like you were being consumed by circumstances beyond your control. God was refining something precious in you that can only be forged in the furnace of isolation. You are like a seed that was buried so deep you thought you were dead. The darkness felt endless, the pressure felt unbearable. But what looked like burial was actually divine planting. What felt like death was actually preparation for unprecedented life. Think about this. Every prophet in the Bible went through a season of hiddenness before their public ministry. Moses 40 years in the wilderness, David years running from Saul in caves, Joseph years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Jesus himself 30 years of obscurity before 3 years of impact. Your hiding place wasn't a punishment, it was a preparation room. And now, right now, as you're listening to these words, something is shifting in the spirit realm. The season of hiddenness is ending, the time of preparation is complete. Heaven is getting ready to unveil what has been carefully crafted in secret. But here's the revelation that will absolutely transform how you see your past. What if the reason your prayers felt unanswered wasn't because God wasn't listening? What if they were being stored, accumulated, building up like compound interest in heaven's vaults for such a time as this? What if every no you received was God protecting you from settling for less than his best? What if every delay was him waiting for the perfect moment when you would be mature enough, strong enough, equipped enough to handle what he's been preparing to release through you? Esther 4:14 asks the question that's burning in heaven's heart right now. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? This is your such a time as this moment. All those years of feeling like you were in the wrong place, with the wrong people, in the wrong season, you weren't lost. You were being positioned. Every connection that didn't work out was God protecting your assignment. Every door that slammed shut was him preserving your energy for the right door. The loneliness you felt wasn't because you were unwanted, it was because you were being prepared for a level of intimacy with God that crowds would have interrupted. The rejection you experienced wasn't because you weren't good enough, it was because you were being saved for something better. You are a walking miracle that hell tried to stop and heaven protected. Every attack on your life, every attempt to discourage you, every whisper that you're not qualified, that's confirmation that you carry something the enemy is terrified of. He doesn't waste ammunition on targets that don't matter. But here's what's about to happen that will shock the spiritual realm. The same God who has been preparing you in private is about to promote you in public. The gifts that have been dormant are about to awaken. The calling that has been whispered is about to be shouted from rooftops. Your morning prayer wasn't just conversation with God, it was the final key turning in the lock of your destiny. But the question that will determine everything is this. Now that you know who you really are, now that you understand what God has been doing, what are you going to do with this revelation? You know what breaks my heart? You've been carrying sacred wounds for so long, you've started believing they make you broken. You've been told that your sensitivity is weakness, that your tears are too much, that your deep-feeling heart is somehow less than. Let me shatter that lie right now. Those tears you've cried in empty rooms, God has been collecting every single one. Psalm 56:8 says it perfectly. You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book. Your pain isn't pathetic, it's precious. Heaven has been taking notes. You prayed when your heart was shattered into 1,000 pieces. You gave when your bank account was emptied and your soul felt bankrupt. You worshipped when worship felt like bleeding. You didn't need applause from the crowd. You didn't need recognition from the religious. You just needed God. And that desperation, that raw, unfiltered need, that's what moved heaven this morning. I need you to understand something that will change everything. The wounds you carry aren't scars of defeat, they're spiritual calligraphy. Heaven reads your pain like sacred prayers written in a language only broken hearts can speak. Every tear that fell in the darkness, God caught it. Every silent scream in the midnight hour, He heard it. Every moment you felt invisible to the world, you were blazing like fire in the spirit realm. Your sensitivity isn't a character flaw. It's a spiritual marking. It's heaven's fingerprint on your soul that says, this one feels deeply because they love deeply. This one hurts for others because they carry my heart. Think about this morning. While others hit the snooze button on their relationship with God, you rose early. While others were scrolling through social media, looking for validation from strangers, you were seeking the face of the Almighty. While others were numbing their pain with distractions, you were bringing your broken pieces to the only one who can make beauty from ashes. That's not ordinary, that's extraordinary. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Your brokenness is your breakthrough waiting to happen. Those lonely mornings when you prayed with tears streaming down your face, you were unknowingly releasing the fragrance of surrender that fills heaven's throne room. Those moments when you whispered, God, I can't do this anymore. That's when angels leaned in closer, because authentic desperation always captures heaven's attention. You felt invisible for so long, passed over, overlooked, forgotten. You've wondered if your prayers bounce off the ceiling. You've questioned if God even sees your struggle. You've asked yourself in those 3 a.m. moments, does my pain mean anything to anyone? The answer is thundering from heaven. Yes. Every sleepless night you spent in prayer, recorded. Every tear you cried when no one was watching, treasured. Every moment you chose faith over fear, hope over despair, trust over doubt, written in permanent ink in heaven's hall of fame. Your scars tell a story that hell fears and heaven celebrates. They whisper to the spiritual realm, this one refused to quit. This one kept believing when belief made no sense. This one still loves God even after everything they've been through. The world sees weakness, God sees warriors. The world sees too emotional, God sees deep wells of compassion that reflect His heart. The world sees damaged goods. God sees priceless treasures who've been refined by fire. You prayed this morning because something inside you refuses to give up on God, even when it feels like He's given up on you. That stubborn faith, that relentless hope, that's not human determination. That's heaven's DNA coursing through your spiritual bloodstream. Those wounds you're ashamed of, they glow with divine light in the spirit realm. They tell every demon in hell, this one still believes, this one still prays, this one still trusts. And that terrifies the kingdom of darkness because they know what you're just beginning to discover. Wounded warriors who refuse to quit are heaven's most dangerous weapons. Stop apologizing for feeling deeply. Stop hiding your tears like they're evidence of weakness. Stop shrinking back because the world told you that you're too much. Your tears are liquid prayers. Your sensitivity is spiritual radar. Your broken heart is a love letter to heaven that says, I still care. I still hope. I still believe. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever wondered if your tears meant anything to God, if you've ever questioned whether heaven notices your pain, I need you to say this aloud right now. He saw me. And type it in the comments so we can witness together that your pain has never been pointless. Because here's what's about to happen. That sacred fire burning in your broken heart, it's about to ignite something in the spiritual realm that will shock you. Those tears you thought were wasted, they were seeds planted in heaven's garden, and harvest time is coming. Your sensitivity isn't your weakness, it's your weapon. And God is about to show you exactly why He allowed you to feel so deeply. The deeper the wound, the greater the weapon you become in his hands. But what you're about to discover next will reveal why heaven chose to mark you with this sacred sensitivity. You know what breaks my heart? It's watching God's chosen ones walk through life believing they're ordinary, believing they're forgotten, believing they don't matter. But let me tell you something that will shatter that lie forever. You were never meant to blend in with the crowd. Do you feel overlooked? Do you feel like you've been waiting in the shadows while others get promoted, celebrated, recognized? Do you wonder why your path has been so different, so difficult, so lonely? Here's what heaven sees that you don't. Every single moment of obscurity has been divine preparation. Look at Joseph, 17 years old, dreaming dreams that seemed impossible. His own brothers threw him in a pit and sold him into slavery. 13 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit, forgotten by the very people he helped. But here's what nobody understood. God wasn't punishing Joseph. He was positioning him. Every year in that dungeon was a masterclass in leadership. Every moment of betrayal was building unshakable character. When Pharaoh needed someone to save a nation from famine, God didn't choose the popular. He chose the prepared. They were overlooked on earth but known in heaven. Moses spent 40 years thinking he was somebody in Pharaoh's palace, then 40 years in the desert thinking he was nobody. But God was using those 80 years to forge the man who would part the Red Sea and lead 2 million people to freedom. That stuttering shepherd who felt inadequate. He became the lawgiver who spoke face to face with Almighty God. David, the forgotten youngest son, overlooked by his own father, when the prophet came looking for the next king. While his brothers stood tall and impressive, David was in the fields with sheep. But those years with the sheep taught him to fight lions and bears. Those nights under the stars taught him to worship in solitude. When Goliath stepped onto the battlefield, everyone saw a giant. David saw target practice. Like them, you were being shaped in silence. Anna, 84 years old, widowed young, spending decades in the temple praying and fasting, while others lived their normal lives. People probably whispered, "What a waste, such a devoted woman, but what's she really accomplishing?" But when the Christ child walked through those temple doors, Anna was the first to recognize him. 84 years of preparation for one divine moment of recognition. Do you see the pattern? The reason others couldn't understand you is because they weren't assigned to carry what you carry. Your struggles weren't random. Your setbacks weren't mistakes. Your seasons of hiddenness weren't punishment. They were preparation for a purpose so significant that it required this level of forging. You think you've been forgotten, but God has been crafting you like an old oak tree. While others grew fast like weeds, shooting up quickly but with shallow roots, you've been growing slowly, deeply, developing the kind of root system that can withstand any storm. When the winds of adversity come, and they will, the fast-growing crowd will topple. But you'll stand unmoved because your roots run deep into the eternal. Why do you think your pain has been so specific? Why do you think your battles have been so particular? Because the enemy knows what you're carrying. He's been trying to stop you before you even fully understand your own assignment. Every attack, every setback, every moment of despair was hell's attempt to abort the very thing heaven is about to birth through you. But here's what the enemy didn't count on. Pain creates depth, and depth creates authority. Every tear you've cried has watered the soil of your calling. Every rejection you've faced has refined your understanding of acceptance. Every time you were overlooked, God was preparing you to see the overlooked. Every time you felt abandoned, you were learning to comfort those who feel forgotten. You've been wondering why you've felt so different, so out of place in this world. It's because you're not from this world system. You operate under heaven's economy, where the last become first, where strength is perfected in weakness, where the foolish things confound the wise. The world celebrates the young, the fast, the flashy. But God specializes in the seasoned, the tested, the faithful. While others were building their resumes, you were building character. While others were climbing ladders, you were descending into valleys where real growth happens. While others were performing for applause, you were praying in secret, where God could shape you without interference. And now, after decades of preparation, after years of feeling invisible, after seasons of wondering if you heard God correctly, heaven is about to reveal why you went through everything you went through. You've spent decades becoming the answer to prayers someone else is just now praying. Right now, there's a young person crying out to God, "Send me someone who understands my pain." You are that someone. Right now, there's a family falling apart, begging heaven for intervention. Your testimony is that intervention. Right now, there's a community in crisis, desperate for wisdom. Your experience is that wisdom. The very things that broke you are about to become the very things that heal others. The desert that nearly destroyed you has become the place where you learned to find water in dry places, and now you can lead others to that same well. The pit that felt like your grave has become the foundation for your palace. But here's the urgent truth that will change everything. Your time of hiddenness is ending. The season of preparation is graduating into the season of manifestation. God is about to pull back the curtain and reveal what He's been building in you all these years. The question is, are you ready to step out of the shadows and into your divine assignment? Because ready or not, your moment is here. Listen to me, chosen one. That prayer you whispered this morning, it wasn't just words floating into empty space. It was a spiritual detonator. You didn't just talk to God, you triggered a cosmic chain reaction that's still rippling through dimensions you can't even see. Do you realize what you've done? Do you understand the magnitude of what happened when you bowed your head and opened your heart? You activated heaven's war room. Right now, at this very moment, there's a battle being fought over your life. Angels are moving, demons are scrambling, and it all started because you dared to pray with authenticity this morning. The enemy thought he had you cornered in doubt, isolated in your struggles, convinced that God wasn't listening. But your prayer just shattered his entire strategy. Daniel 10:12-13 gives us a rare glimpse behind the spiritual curtain. Do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. 21 days. Daniel's prayer was heard immediately, but spiritual warfare delayed the answer. Your delay is not God's denial, it's hell's desperate attempt to block what heaven has already released. Heaven heard you. Hell noticed you. Angels were deployed. The moment your lips moved in prayer, dispatch orders went out across the spiritual realm. Michael the archangel received your coordinates. Gabriel was alerted to your situation. Warrior angels that have been waiting for centuries to move on your behalf just got their marching orders. Your prayer didn't just reach God's ears, it activated His army. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. When a chosen one truly prays, the entire spiritual landscape shifts. Chains that have held your family for generations, they just snapped. Gates of hell that have been locked against your breakthrough, they're shaking on their hinges. Territories that darkness claimed in your life. The deed just changed hands. You see, most people pray like they're making suggestions to a distant deity. But you? This morning you prayed like someone who understands their royal bloodline. You didn't beg, you declared. You didn't hope, you claimed. You didn't whisper into the void, you commanded atmospheres to change. Do you know what happens when a chosen one truly prays? The enemy's strategies crumble. Demons flee to report back to their commander that the human is awake. Principalities and powers that have been operating unchallenged in your region suddenly find themselves facing resistance they didn't expect. Your prayer this morning was like dropping a nuclear bomb in the spirit realm. Quiet on earth, but earth-shaking in heaven. The reverberations are still traveling through dimensions, breaking open doors that have been sealed, dissolving barriers that have been built against your destiny. Think about this. Why do you think the enemy works so hard to keep you from praying? Why does he flood your mind with distractions the moment you try to seek God? Because he knows something you're just beginning to understand. Your prayers are weapons of mass destruction against his kingdom. Every time you pray with faith, you're not just asking for help, you're declaring war. You're announcing to every demon in your area that their time is up. You're serving eviction notices to spirits that have been squatting in your circumstances. You're calling down fire from heaven to consume everything that doesn't belong in your life. But here's the part that will blow your mind. The enemy is more afraid of your prayers than you are of his attacks. He knows that one sincere cry from a chosen one can undo decades of his careful planning. He understands that your communion with God gives you access to power that makes his best efforts look like child's play. Right now, while you're listening to this message, spiritual reinforcements are arriving. Angels that have been assigned to your case since birth are taking their positions. Heavenly hosts that have been waiting for permission to intervene are moving into formation. The cavalry is coming, and they're armed with the authority of the Most High God. This is why your morning prayer felt different. This is why something stirred in your spirit that you couldn't quite explain. This is why the enemy has been trying extra hard to discourage you, distract you, and convince you that nothing is changing. He knows what you're just discovering. You just activated a level of spiritual warfare that he's not equipped to handle. The prayer you prayed this morning didn't just go up to heaven and get filed away. It landed on God's desk, marked "You are gent" and "priority." It triggered protocols in the heavenly realm that have been waiting for your signal. It released resources that have been held in reserve specifically for this moment in your life. Something just shifted in your favor. The spiritual winds have changed direction. The tide has turned. What looked like a setback is about to become a setup. What felt like delay is about to become divine timing. What seemed like denial is about to become explosive breakthrough. You're not the same person you were when you woke up this morning. You're not carrying the same limitations, the same restrictions, the same spiritual burdens. Your prayer changed your spiritual address. You just moved from victim to victor, from defeated to delivered, from struggling to strategic. The question is, do you believe what you released this morning will change your atmosphere? Because if you do, if you truly understand that your prayer triggered a spiritual avalanche that's still gathering momentum, then you need to declare this in faith right now. Something just broke in my favor, but this is just the beginning. What heaven heard this morning was more than just a prayer. It was a signal that you're ready for what comes next. And what comes next will require every ounce of faith you've been building. Listen to me closely, chosen one. That prayer you whispered this morning, it wasn't just heard, it was timed. Heaven doesn't operate on Wall Street clocks or Manhattan rush hours. Heaven's clock isn't ticking by seconds, it moves by obedience. And your obedience this morning just started a countdown that will shake the very foundations of your reality. What if I told you that today, this very day, marked day one of your personal Jericho walk? What if that moment of surrender wasn't just a prayer, but a divine activation sequence? The same God who brought down those impenetrable walls in 7 days is about to do something in your life that will leave you breathless. But here's what's got me burning with holy fire. Most believers pray and then go back to business as usual. They cry out to God and then act like nothing happened. They beg for breakthrough and then live like they're still in bondage. Not you. Not anymore. Because what happened this morning changed everything. Joshua 6 isn't just ancient history, it's your prophetic blueprint. For 6 days, the Israelites walked around Jericho in complete silence. No talking, no complaining, no questioning God's strategy, just pure, unwavering obedience. On the 7th day, they shouted once, and walls that had stood for centuries crumbled like dust. You want to know why most people never see their walls fall? Because they can't keep their mouth shut for 7 days. They walk around their Jericho for 1 day and start complaining by day 2. They march for 3 days and begin doubting by day 4. They make it to day 6 and give up because they can't see any cracks in the wall. But you're different. You proved that this morning when you chose prayer over sleep, surrender over scrolling, faith over fear. The question is, Are you ready to walk the full 7 days? Habakkuk 2-3 declares with prophetic authority, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry." Your appointed time isn't some distant future. It started ticking this morning at exactly the moment you said, "God, I surrender." Here's what's going to happen in the next 7 days, and I need you to understand this with every fiber of your being. Something will shift. But, and this is crucial, you must stay aligned. No complaining. No questioning. No looking back. Just pure radical obedience to whatever God whispers to your spirit. Day 1 was your surrender. Days 2-6 will test everything you claim to believe. The enemy will throw doubt at you like arrows. Circumstances might look worse before they look better. People might question your faith, your sanity, your commitment. Let them talk. While they're running their mouths, you'll be walking in divine instruction. This morning's whisper wasn't just comfort. It was instruction. God didn't just say, "I love you." He said, "I'm about to move, and I need you ready." That gentle stirring in your spirit wasn't emotional manipulation. It was divine intelligence downloading into your soul. But here's where it gets dangerous for lukewarm believers. This 7-day cycle demands everything. Not 99%. Not your Sunday best. Everything. Your pride, your plans, your need to understand every detail. God is asking you to walk around your impossible situation 7 times. And on the 7th day, when he says, "Shout," you better be ready to bring down some walls. You think those walls in your life, financial, relational, emotional, physical, you think they're permanent. You think that diagnosis is final. You think that broken relationship can't be restored. You think those doors that have been closed for years will never open. Think again. The same God who stopped the sun for Joshua, who parted the Red Sea for Moses, who raised the dead for Jesus, that God heard you this morning. And he's not interested in small moves. He's preparing to do something so undeniably supernatural that even your enemies will have to acknowledge his hand on your life. In the next 7 days, I need you to watch for 3 things. Divine appointments. God will strategically place people in your path. Supernatural provision. Resources will appear from unexpected sources. Spiritual acceleration. Things that should take months will happen in moments. But if you miss the significance of this 7-day window, if you treat this like just another week, if you go back to living like this morning never happened, you'll walk right past your miracle and wonder why God seems silent again. The countdown has begun. Your Jericho is surrounded. The question that will determine your destiny is this: will you complete the walk, or will you quit on day 6 when the walls still look unshakable? You know what I'm tired of hearing? I'm tired of hearing God's people walk around defeated, talking about how small they are, how forgotten they feel, how their best days are behind them. Stop it. Just stop it right now. Because this morning, when you prayed, you didn't just whisper into the wind, you shook the foundations of eternity. You didn't just speak words, you commanded heavenly attention. And if you can move heaven with your voice, why are you still living like you're powerless on earth? Listen to me carefully. You are not just a prayer warrior. You are a chain breaker. Every generational curse that has haunted your family line, your prayers this morning put cracks in those chains. Every pattern of defeat that's tried to define your bloodline, your surrender to God just reversed the curse. Deuteronomy 28:13 declares, "The Lord will make you the head, not the tail." If you pay attention to the commands of the Lord your God, you will always be at the top, never at the bottom. Did you catch that? Not sometimes at the top, always at the top. That's your spiritual DNA. That's who you are in the kingdom. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. He's convinced you that because you're getting older, because your body isn't what it used to be, because your children don't call as much as they should, that somehow your spiritual authority has diminished. That's a lie straight from the pit of hell. You're not a forgotten elder. You are a living well of wisdom. You are a revival carrier. Moses was 80 when God used him to split the Red Sea. Abraham was 100 when he received the promise. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Your age isn't your limitation. It's your qualification. Every gray hair on your head represents a battle you've survived. Every wrinkle on your face tells the story of God's faithfulness through decades of storms. You're not declining. You're refining. You're not fading. You're being purified into pure gold. But I need you to understand something that will revolutionize how you see yourself. You are not beneath the burden. You are above the battle. Ephesians 2-6 says God raised us up with Christ and seated us with him in the heavenly realms. Past tense. Already done. You're not fighting to get to victory. You're fighting from victory. When you prayed this morning, you weren't begging from the ground level. You were decreeing from the throne room. You weren't asking as a servant. You were declaring as a co-heir with Christ. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead lives inside your 70-year-old body, your 80-year-old frame, your 90-year-old spirit. Stop asking God to send rain. You are the one carrying the clouds. When you walk into a room, the atmosphere should shift. When you speak, demons should tremble. When you pray, heaven should mobilize. You're not waiting for revival. You are revival walking in skin. Here's the shocking truth about your morning prayer that will change everything. For decades you've been told to humble yourself, to make yourself small, to remember you're just a sinner saved by grace. But what if humility isn't about making yourself small? What if true humility is recognizing how big God has made you? Jesus said in John 14:12, "Very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these." Greater things than Jesus. Let that sink in. You're not called to be a pale imitation of Christ. You're called to be a powerful extension of his kingdom authority. This morning, when you cried out to God, something shifted in the spiritual realm that you need to understand. Every principality that has been assigned to your zip code, every stronghold that has been built over your family, every assignment of darkness that has been plotting against your destiny, they all heard your voice, and they all shuddered, because what they realized is what you're about to discover. You didn't just prove your heart belongs to God this morning. God proved he has always belonged to you. From before the foundation of the world, he chose you, he called you, he equipped you, he anointed you. You are not an accident. You are not an afterthought. You are not a forgotten senior citizen collecting Social Security and waiting to die. You are a kingdom weapon, locked and loaded with decades of prayer experience, tested by fire, proven by time, and dangerous to every force of darkness that dares to challenge what God is doing through you. The question isn't whether God will use you. The question is, will you finally start walking like the heaven, shaking, chain-breaking, mountain-moving force of nature that this morning's prayer revealed you to be? Because everything changes when you realize that heaven doesn't just hear you, heaven obeys you. Listen carefully, chosen one. This morning's prayer didn't end with an amen. It lit a fire in the spirit realm that's still blazing across heaven's courts right now. And tonight, hours later, the oil is still burning. You think your prayer was finished when you wiped away that tear. You think heaven moved on when you whispered your last word. The incense is still rising. The smoke of your surrender is still ascending to the throne. Heaven hasn't closed the book on this morning. It's still watching. Here's what's happening in the spiritual realm while you're going about your day. Angels are still stationed around the prayer you prayed. Your words created a spiritual vortex that's drawing heaven's attention like a magnet. Every time you breathe, you're inhaling the answer to what you ask for. Every heartbeat is pumping divine purpose through your veins, and the oil is still burning. But here's where most believers make a fatal mistake. They pray, they say Amen, and then they go back to living like nothing happened. They return to worry. They slip back into doubt. They start questioning if God even heard them. Dear heart, that's spiritual amnesia. and it's killing your breakthrough. You moved God this morning, now God is moving you. But if you don't maintain the posture of someone who just touched heaven, you'll miss the miracle that's already in motion. The flame didn't die when you said amen. It's spreading. Right now, there are dominoes falling in the spiritual realm because of your prayer. Doors are creaking open, chains are starting to snap. Enemies of your destiny are being confused and scattered. But you won't see it if you're not watching with the eyes of faith. And the oil is still burning. Psalm 141:2 says, "May my prayer be set before you like incense. May the lifting up of my hands be like the evening sacrifice." Notice, it doesn't say the incense burns for 5 minutes and then disappears. True spiritual incense burns continuously. Your morning prayer created a perpetual flame in heaven's temple, and it's still burning. But here's the question that will determine whether you receive your miracle or miss it entirely. What's your posture right now? Are you carrying yourself like someone who just moved the heart of God? Or are you walking around defeated, acting like your prayer bounced off the ceiling, and the oil is still burning? I'm going to tell you something that might shock you. Your prayer this morning wasn't just about what you asked for, it was a spiritual appointment. God scheduled that moment with you before the foundation of the world. He's been waiting for you to show up with that exact level of desperation, that precise degree of surrender. And when you finally did, something shifted in eternity. The angels who have been assigned to your case got their marching orders. The resources that have been waiting in heaven's warehouse got your spiritual address. The people who are supposed to help you fulfill your destiny just got a divine nudge to cross your path. And the oil is still burning. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. The longer you stay in the posture of prayer, the stronger the flame becomes. The more you act like someone who just touched God, the more heaven responds. This is why David said in Psalm 34:1, "I will extol the Lord at all times. His praise will always be on my lips." David understood something that modern believers have forgotten. Prayer isn't an event, it's a lifestyle. Worship isn't a moment, it's a mindset. Faith isn't a feeling, it's a posture you maintain until the promise manifests. And the oil is still burning. Tonight, when you go to bed, heaven will still be processing your morning prayer. Tomorrow, when you wake up, angels will still be working on your behalf. Next week, next month, next year, if necessary, that spiritual fire will keep burning until every word you prayed becomes flesh. But you have to match heaven's persistence with earth's patience. You have to walk like someone who knows something is coming. You have to carry yourself like royalty who just had a private audience with the king. And the oil is still burning. The question isn't whether God heard you. He did. The question isn't whether he's going to answer. He is. The real question is this: will you maintain the posture of someone who just moved heaven until heaven moves earth for you? Because I'm telling you right now, chosen one, your morning prayer created a spiritual momentum that hell cannot stop, and the oil is still burning. So what are you going to do with this fire that refuses to die? Chosen ones, I need to tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. That pain you felt today, that sudden anxiety that gripped your chest, that splitting headache that came out of nowhere, that nasty text message that ruined your mood wasn't random, it was retaliation. You think I'm being dramatic? Listen carefully. The moment you touched heaven this morning with that raw, desperate prayer, you didn't just move God's heart. You sent shock waves through the kingdom of darkness. And now, hell is fighting back. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. The attack confirms the assignment. The harder hell pushes against you today, the more terrified they are of what God is about to release through your life. You're not under attack because you're weak. You're under attack because you're dangerous. Think about Daniel, chapter 10, verse 12. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard. But here's the part that will blow your mind. The angel told Daniel that the prince of Persia resisted him for 21 days. 21 days of spiritual warfare because one man prayed. Your prayer this morning didn't just reach heaven, it triggered a cosmic battle. Right now, as I speak these words, there's a war raging in the heavenlies over your breakthrough. Angels are fighting for you, while demons are scrambling to stop what's coming. But here's the revelation that will change everything. You didn't just get attacked. You got noticed. And when a chosen one gets noticed by heaven, all of hell remembers the prophecy written over their life before they were even born. That's why your phone kept buzzing with drama today. That's why your boss was extra difficult. That's why your body feels like it's falling apart. The enemy is throwing everything he's got at you because he knows that something massive is about to shift in your favor. You want proof. Look at your life pattern. Every time you've stepped deeper into your calling, what happened? Opposition increased. Every time you've drawn closer to God, what showed up? More battles. This isn't coincidence, beloved. This is confirmation. The devil doesn't waste ammunition on people who aren't a threat. He doesn't assign demons to watch over lives that don't matter to the kingdom. But you're different. You carry something that terrifies the gates of hell. You have a destiny so powerful that darkness has to mobilize against you just to keep you from discovering who you really are. Ephesians 6:12 warns us, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age." That difficult person who came against you today, they're not your real enemy. They're just a pawn being used by spiritual forces that are terrified of your potential. But here's what I want you to understand with every fiber of your being. Every attack is actually an announcement. It's hell's way of telling you that your breakthrough is closer than you think. The enemy only fights this hard when he's about to lose something significant. You prayed this morning and touched the supernatural. Now the natural realm is in chaos because two kingdoms cannot occupy the same space. When heaven's light invades your situation, darkness has to flee. But it doesn't go quietly. It fights. It screams. It throws everything it can at you on the way out. That's why Jesus said in Matthew 11:12, "The kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent take it by force." Your gentle morning prayer wasn't gentle in the spirit realm. It was violent against every force that's been holding you back. So when that unexpected bill showed up in your mailbox today, when that relationship got complicated, when your health started acting up, don't you dare think God didn't hear you. The attack is proof that he did. Hell is panicking because your prayer just activated something they've been trying to keep locked down for years. Right now, as you're listening to these words, I want you to feel this truth in your spirit. You are not a victim of spiritual warfare. You are a warrior who just declared war. This morning, you didn't just pray. You invaded enemy territory. You didn't just seek God. You threatened hell's assignment over your life. And that, chosen one, is exactly why everything feels like it's falling apart today. Because it is. The old is crumbling to make way for the new. Hell's grip on your situation is loosening, and desperation makes the enemy loud, chaotic, and obvious. But here's the question that's going to determine your next move. Will you retreat because of the resistance, or will you advance because of the revelation? Dear chosen one, let me speak to the part of you that nobody sees. The part that's been bleeding for decades while wearing a Sunday smile. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? You've been carrying wounds that have no medical name. Soul bruises that show up as insomnia, as anxiety, as that inexplicable heaviness that settles on your chest at 3 a.m. You've tried explaining it to doctors who prescribe pills for problems they can't diagnose. You've sat across from well-meaning friends who offer solutions for symptoms they'll never understand. Because how do you explain that your pain isn't just emotional, it's spiritual? How do you tell someone that you're not just sad, you're soul-sick? That what's breaking you isn't circumstantial, it's supernatural? You've cried in rooms no one knew were altars. Kitchen floors at midnight became your sanctuary. Car seats became your confession booth. Bathroom stalls became your prayer closet. You've collapsed in parking lots no one saw as holy ground, because that's where heaven met you in your breaking. And here's what breaks my heart the most about your story. You kept showing up. You kept smiling. You kept praying. While carrying invisible weights that would crush lesser spirits, you still served others. You still encouraged the discouraged. You still showed up for church, for family dinners, for obligations that felt like mountains when your soul was already bleeding. You became a master at hiding hurricanes behind handshakes. But God sees every invisible scar. Psalm 34:18 declares, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." Not near to the visibly wounded, not near to the socially acceptable struggles, near to the brokenhearted, the ones whose pain can't be photographed or documented, but runs deeper than bone. You've been fighting battles in dimensions most people don't even know exist. While they're worried about their 401k, you're warring against generational curses. While they're stressed about traffic, you're interceding for family members who don't even know they're under attack. While they're complaining about minor inconveniences, you're standing in spiritual gaps that require pieces of your soul. This is why you feel so isolated. This is why you feel so misunderstood. You're not fighting flesh and blood enemies. You're wrestling against principalities and powers. You're not dealing with surface-level problems. You're carrying the weight of spiritual inheritance, bearing burdens that were passed down through bloodlines you didn't choose. The enemy has been using your sensitivity as a weapon against you. He's convinced you that your depth is dysfunction, that your spiritual awareness is mental illness, that your ability to feel the unseen makes you unstable. But what if I told you the exact opposite is true? What if your breaking wasn't the end of your story, but the beginning of your power? Think about this. Bruised grapes produce the richest oil. The most expensive perfumes come from flowers that have been crushed. The most precious metals are refined through fire. Your pain wasn't punishment, it was pressing. And pressing produces power that unchanged people will never possess. Every tear you've cried in secret has been collected by heaven. Every prayer you've whispered through gritted teeth has moved the throne room. Every time you chose worship over wallowing, faith over fear, service over self-pity, you were being forged into a weapon the kingdom desperately needs. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to realize. Your sensitivity isn't your weakness, it's your superpower. Your ability to feel deeply, to discern spirits, to carry burdens others can't even see. This makes you invaluable to the kingdom of God. You weren't made fragile, you were made fine-tuned. The very traits that have caused you the most pain are the same traits God wants to use to heal a broken world. Your brokenness has given you access to broken people. Your wilderness has prepared you to lead others out of theirs. Your midnight tears have earned you the authority to speak life into someone else's darkness. Stop apologizing for your intensity. Stop downplaying your depth. Stop hiding your holy sensitivity behind societal expectations of strength. The world needs what your pain has produced. The church needs what your crushing has created. You've been in training your entire life for a purpose you're just beginning to understand. Every battle you've fought in the invisible realm has been preparing you for a visible victory. Every wound you've carried in silence has been developing your capacity to carry others' burdens with grace. If you've ever felt like you were carrying pain too holy for people to understand, type, "It's me" in the comments. Let's create a community of the spiritually wounded who refuse to stay down. Because your morning prayer wasn't just heard by heaven, it was the sound of a warrior awakening. And what God is about to do through your surrendered scars will leave the enemy regretting every wound he thought would destroy you. Listen carefully. Chosen one. This morning's prayer didn't just reach heaven, it opened a heavenly file with your name written in eternal ink. Right now, at this very moment, there are divine documents being unsealed in the courts of heaven that have been waiting decades, maybe even generations, for your voice to unlock them. You want to know why your life has felt like one battle after another, why every door seemed to slam shut, just when breakthrough felt close. Why you've been walking through season after season of delay and disappointment. Here's the truth that will revolutionize everything you thought you knew about your struggle. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared for this exact moment, when heaven would crack open your scroll. Angels aren't just guarding you anymore, they're reading from your scroll. And what's written there will shock you. Every tear you've cried, every prayer you've whispered in the dark, every moment you felt forgotten, it's all been recorded as evidence in a cosmic courtroom where your case has been building toward this divine verdict. Daniel 7:10 tells us that thousands upon thousands attended him, 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. Beloved, your book is open right now. The court of heaven is in session, and the judge of all creation is reviewing your file with the same intensity that decides the fate of nations. You thought your life was falling apart, didn't you? You thought God had forgotten your address, lost your phone number, moved on to someone more worthy. But here's what was really happening while you were drowning in doubt. God was finalizing a case in the courts of heaven with your name as the plaintiff and every force of darkness as the defendant. Heaven is reviewing your scroll, and the evidence is overwhelming. Every injustice you've suffered, every promise that was broken, every door that was slammed in your face, it's all been building a legal case for your restoration that no demon in hell can argue against. The enemy thought he was destroying you, but he was actually building the prosecution's case. Every attack was evidence, every setback was testimony, every moment you wanted to quit. But didn't that was character evidence that will now work in your favor? Do you understand what this means? Your pain wasn't pointless. Your waiting wasn't waste. Every season of silence was God's legal team gathering evidence for the greatest courtroom victory you've ever witnessed. Isaiah 54:17 declares, "No weapon formed against you will prosper, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and this is their vindication from me." That word vindication isn't just forgiveness, it's legal justification. It's heaven's court ruling in your favor, with back pay for everything you've lost. Heaven is reviewing your scroll, and the statute of limitations on your breakthrough just expired. The case that's been building in the courts of eternity is about to reach its climax, and the verdict will echo through every realm that has been watching your story unfold. But here's where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. The scrolls that are being unsealed aren't just about your present situation. These are generational scrolls, documents that have been sealed since your great-grandparents walked this earth. Promises that were made to your bloodline that got buried under years of compromise, defeat, and spiritual amnesia. Malachi 3:7 says, "Ever since the time of your ancestors, you have turned away from my decrees and have not kept them. Return to me, and I will return to you." The word return here doesn't just mean come back. It means restoration, recompense, divine payback for everything that was stolen from your family line. The prayer you prayed this morning wasn't just personal petition, it was generational activation. You just awakened legal documents in heaven that have been waiting for someone in your bloodline to stand up and claim what belongs to them. Your ancestors' unfulfilled prayers are about to get answered through your obedience. Their broken dreams are about to become your miraculous reality. The blessings they never lived to see are about to manifest in your lifetime because you had the audacity to pray when you felt forgotten. Heaven is reviewing your scroll, and it's thicker than you ever imagined. Every covenant God made with your family line, every promise he whispered to your grandmother as she rocked babies and prayed through tears, every declaration your grandfather made when he gave his life to Christ, it's all in your file. The enemy has been fighting you so hard because he knows what's in that scroll. He's seen the blueprints of your destiny. He's read the fine print of your calling. He knows that once heaven unseals those documents, his time of tormenting your bloodline is officially over. But there's something else being unsealed right now that will absolutely stagger you. These aren't just personal scrolls or family scrolls. According to Revelation 5-9, There are scrolls that contain the redemption plans for entire communities, cities, even nations. And your morning prayer just activated your authorization to carry one of those scrolls. You think you've been going through all this for your own breakthrough. You've been in training to become a scroll bearer for your generation. God has been qualifying you through your pain to carry promises that will heal more than just your household. The legal proceedings in heaven's court aren't just about restoring what you've lost. They're about releasing through you what an entire generation has been waiting for. Your vindication will become their liberation. Your breakthrough will become their breakthrough. Heaven is reviewing your scroll one final time, and the angels are preparing to execute the court's decision. The gavel is about to fall, and when it does, every chain that has held you back will snap under the weight of divine legal authority. The question isn't whether God will move in your situation. The court case is already won. The only question now is, are you ready for the supernatural acceleration that's about to hit your life when heaven's legal department finishes processing your case? Because what's coming next will require every ounce of faith you've built through every trial you've survived. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Right now, in this very moment, you might be sitting in what feels like the darkest hour of your life. The bills are stacking up like storm clouds. The doctor's report sits heavy on your kitchen table. Your children have walked away from everything you taught them. Your spouse looks at you like a stranger. The dreams you carried for 60, 70, 80 years feel like they're suffocating in your chest. And the enemy is whispering the cruelest lie of all. It's too late for you, but I'm here to shatter that lie with the thunder of heaven's truth. What you're experiencing right now isn't your ending, it's your midnight hour. And midnight, dear friend, is not just darkness. Midnight is where new days are born. You see, the devil doesn't want you to understand the power of midnight. He wants you to believe that darkness equals defeat, that silence equals abandonment, that delay equals denial. But God operates on a different clock than the world does. While the world sees midnight as the end, God sees midnight as the launching pad for miracles. Think about this. Every single day begins at midnight, not at sunrise, not when the rooster crows. At the stroke of 12, when darkness is at its deepest, that's when tomorrow officially begins. You're not stuck in yesterday's failures. You're standing at the threshold of God's new mercies. Let me take you to a prison cell in Philippi around midnight, 2,000 years ago. Acts 16:25 paints us a picture that will revolutionize how you see your current struggle. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. Picture this scene. These men weren't in a comfortable church pew. They were beaten, bloodied, their backs torn open by Roman whips. Their feet were locked in stocks. They couldn't move. They couldn't escape. They couldn't even lie down properly. They were in the absolute worst moment of their lives. And what did they do at midnight? They sang, not whispered, not whimpered. They sang hymns to God loud enough for every prisoner in that dungeon to hear them. They didn't wait for their circumstances to change before they praised. They praised in the pit. They worshipped in the worst. They sang in the stocks. And here's what shook the very foundations of that prison. It wasn't their songs that moved God. It was their faith in the midnight hour that unleashed heaven's power. Suddenly, the earth quaked. Prison doors flew open. Chains fell off every prisoner. The jailer fell to his knees, crying, "What must I do to be saved?" What you do in midnight will shape what you walk into at sunrise. But let me ask you something that might sting. What are you doing in your midnight hour? Are you complaining, or are you claiming God's promises? Are you cursing your circumstances, or are you choosing to trust the God who holds your future? Are you rehearsing your problems, or are you releasing praise from your lips? Because here's the raw truth that most believers never learn. God is waiting to see what you'll do when everything looks hopeless. He's not testing your strength. He's testing your faith. He's not measuring your ability to fix your situation. He's measuring your willingness to trust him when you can't see the way out. The midnight hour is not punishment, it's preparation. God doesn't allow you to go through darkness to destroy you. He allows you to go through darkness to develop you. Every midnight moment is reshaping your character, refining your faith, and repositioning you for the breakthrough that's coming at dawn. You think you're too old for God to use you. Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver Israel. You think your best years are behind you. Anna was 84 when she prophesied over baby Jesus in the temple. You think your situation is too complicated. Joseph's midnight hour lasted 13 years in slavery and prison before he became second in command of Egypt. Your age is not your limitation, it's your qualification. Every year you've lived, every trial you've survived, every tear you've cried has been preparing you for this moment. God hasn't forgotten about you. He's been seasoning you for the assignment that requires someone with your exact experience, your exact wisdom, your exact relationship with him. But here's what will determine whether you see the sunrise. Will you praise in the prison? Will you worship when you're wounded? Will you sing when you're stuck? The other prisoners in that Philippi jail were listening to Paul and Silas sing. They weren't just hearing music, they were witnessing the sound of unshakable faith. And when the earthquake hit, every one of them could have escaped, but not one of them ran. Why? Because they had been so moved by the worship they heard in the darkness that they wanted to meet the God who could give such peace in such chaos. Your midnight praise is not just about your breakthrough, it's about the people who are watching you worship through your worst. Right now, someone in your family is watching how you handle this crisis. Someone in your neighborhood is watching how you respond to this setback. Someone at the grocery store, at the doctor's office, at the pharmacy is watching how a real believer behaves when life doesn't make sense. Your midnight hour is their invitation to believe. So I'm going to ask you to do something that might feel impossible right now. I'm going to ask you to open your mouth and declare war on despair. I'm going to ask you to lift your voice and proclaim that no matter what this looks like, God is still on the throne. If you're in your midnight moment right now, if the darkness feels suffocating, if the silence feels deafening, if the waiting feels unbearable, I need you to say it out loud. I still praise. Don't whisper it, declare it. Let hell hear it. Let heaven record it. Let your own faith catch fire from the sound of your surrender. Type it in the comments in all caps. I still praise. Because when you praise in the midnight hour, you're not just making noise, you're making history. You're joining the ranks of every saint who ever discovered that the darkest hour is just before the dawn breaks with blinding glory. But what happens when your praise meets God's power in the midnight hour? That's where the real miracle begins. Before you step away from this moment, I need you to carry these truths deep into your heart. When you prayed this morning, heaven didn't just hear you, heaven felt you. Your whispered words weren't lost in the wind, they were captured in golden bowls before the throne of God. That moment when you felt forgotten, you were actually being remembered by the one who never sleeps, never slumbers, and never stops working on your behalf. Remember this, you are not walking this journey alone. While the world may not understand your struggles, there's a God who sees every tear, counts every sigh, and treasures every moment you choose faith over fear. And right here in this community, thousands of believers are standing with you, ready to lift you up when your arms grow weary, ready to believe with you when your faith feels fragile. Your midnight hour is not your final hour. What feels like an ending is actually God preparing you for a beginning that will leave you breathless with gratitude. The prayers you prayed in desperation are about to be answered in ways that exceed your highest expectations. So let me ask you this, when God shows up in your situation, and He will you remember this moment? Will you remember that He heard you when you thought He was silent? Will you remember that He was moving when everything seemed still? Let's pray together as one family. Heavenly Father, I place my hand on the shoulder of every person watching this message right now. You see them in their living rooms, in their bedrooms, maybe sitting at their kitchen tables with hearts heavy but hope still flickering. Lord, breathe fresh life into their weary spirits. Remind them that their morning prayer didn't fall on deaf ears. It landed directly in your heart. Father, for those facing impossible medical diagnoses, stretch out your healing hand. For those drowning in financial burdens, open doors they didn't even know existed. For those whose families are broken, begin the work of restoration that only you can do. For those who feel forgotten, wrap them in the assurance that you have never taken your eyes off them. Lord, let them feel your presence right now, not as a distant deity, but as a loving Father who delights in answering the prayers of his children. Give them strength for tomorrow, peace for tonight, and unshakable confidence that their breakthrough is not a matter of if, but when. Transform their midnight into morning, their tears into triumph, their waiting into worship. And when their miracle manifests, let them never forget that it all began with a prayer that moved heaven. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. If this message touched your heart, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us what God is doing in your life. Share your prayer requests. This community believes in the power of agreement, and we will stand with you. Don't keep this hope to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to know that their prayers matter, that their voice is heard, and that their God is still working miracles. Thank you for staying with me through this entire message. Your faithfulness to listen means more than you know. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because God has more revelations to share through this ministry. You belong to a family of believers who refuse to give up, refuse to give in, and refuse to stop believing that our God is still the God of the impossible. Until next time, keep